What's up guys, YST here and welcome back to another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today, we've just been given the breaking news that alongside the new fusion champion of the Supreme Elhain, who'll be starting on March 10th, we're actually getting the addition of 3 new legendary champions, and it's actually the supreme variations of the other 3 starters. So we're going to be having Supreme Galek, we're going to have Supreme Kale, and also Supreme Athel. So what we're going to be doing in today's video is giving my first impressions of the skill sets, and then also you guys let me know in the comment section which one you would be most excited to pull. Now, if I was to think about it, potentially we might get one as a guaranteed event. That's just speculation. And then potentially we might have one in like a champion training tournament like we've seen previously with the Owella and the Alton of the Shell, where the top place actually gets the reward of a legendary champion. I'm not sure if that's how they're going to do it. Initially, I thought they might be releasing these as short-term fusions and having them of a less period of a normal fusion. But I guess I was wrong on that kind of guess there. But you guys let me know. Do you think there'll be any kind of special events that they might do in order to release these? As I thought it'd be a really cool idea if they're going to release them all at once like they're going to be doing, to let us choose which fusion we wanted in a sense, and have like an anniversary universal fragment system to be like, I want to do my fusion for Galek, or I want to do my fusion for Athel. So then it's very similar to like how we started this game in choosing our starter champions. But yeah, that's just me trying to think fun out of the box. But alright, Ultimate Galek or Supreme Galek, it looks absolutely amazing. He is obviously the legendary version. All of them are going to be Void Affinity. And with the Exemplar of Rage, attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit has a 10% chance of inflicting a critical hit. And each hit also has a 40% chance of increasing the duration of any HP burn debuffs on the target by 1 turn. So being able to add to his crit rate, being able to increase the duration of the burns, keeping up for a longer time, is actually very, very strong, because with the Bloodshed Tempest, he attacks 4 times at random, places a 50% increased attack buff on this champion for 3 turns before attacking. So we've got a bit of a longer duration there, and potentially putting some lasting gifts on will keep this on even longer. But you won't need to do that if you've got a 3 turn cooldown once booked. And each hit has an extra 10% chance of inflicting a critical hit again. But also each hit has a 75% chance of instantly activating HP burn debuffs on each target and decreasing the duration of those HP burn debuffs by 1 turn. Would then fill this champion's turn meter by 30% if 3 or more HP burn debuffs are activated during this attack, which is going to be so strong for both the Hydra boss, it's going to be strong for dungeons in general. It's going to be a whopper of a skill, guys, and being able to increase his turn meter in the same skill set, with that conditional of having extra burns, he's just going to be like a crazy burn detonator damage dealer. You don't have to crit cap him, he's amazing so far. Unreasoning Outburst attacks all enemies and has a extra 10% chance of inflicting a critical hit. Okay. They should have just put that in the passive instead of just writing it everywhere. Has a 100% chance once booked of applying the HP burn debuff alongside the block buffs, and also places an increased speed or decreased speed, sorry, on targets whose turn meter is higher than 50%. Guys, this guy has to be 10 times better than the Dark Supreme Elhain or whatever we're getting for the fusion. He is absolutely amazing. Like, we're doing the increasing the durations on the A1. We're instantly activating on the A2 at random, 4-time hitter. We're also doing a burn of his own alongside the block buffs, which is all vital for the Hydra boss, and can also have a lot of use in places like the arena to lock out champions such as Valkyrie or whoever that may be. And with the Last at Danger on a 4-turn cooldown, whenever this champion receives a Fear, True Fear, Freeze, Provoke, Sleep, Stun, or Petrification debuff, instantly removes it, then heals this champion, and grants an extra turn. So next up here, we have got the Supreme Kale, who once again looks absolutely amazing. And let's just break down his kit. And once again, guys, he's going to be that Void Affinity. With the Exemplar of Skill, attacks all enemies, so an AoE A1. Very, very nice for stuff like stun sets, right? Or the taunting sets for the Hydra boss, because you're doing it every single time. And that kind of is the theme of this champion. AoE with every single skill you're about to see. Has a chance of placing a weaken on the A1, which is nice for amplifying your damage stats. And this debuff cannot be resisted, meaning that you do not need accuracy in order to place this weakened debuff, meaning that you can ramp up his damage and ramp up his speed without relying on those stats there. On the second A2, which I'm not going to try pronounce before you guys bash me in the comments, there's an AoE with a 100% chance of placing 3 5% poison debuffs for 2 turns. This debuff cannot be resisted. Wow. Also increases the duration of all enemy debuffs by 1 turn, and the effect cannot be resisted. Now, what does Dark Kale do, guys? We like to use him for increasing the duration of those debuffs, and he has that single target of poison with a poison sensitivity. Well, this dude comes in as a straight out substitute, places 3 poisons, and instantly increases the duration in the same skill set. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And I'm a big fan of Poison Explosion, and he would definitely fulfill that role for me at 100% and go straight into my squads. On the Arcane Havoc, attacks all enemies and places a 50% increased accuracy buff on all allies. So making sure that your allies don't need as much accuracy to counter stuff like maybe the Iron Twins Fortress, hypothetically. And also has a 100% chance of applying a decreased resistance debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. And once again, cannot be resisted. And fills his champion's turn meter by 10% for each decreased resistance debuff placed by this skill. That's quite a big turn meter increase, guys. If you think about the Hydra boss 4 heads, that's like a 40% turn meter increase there. Although poisons isn't like the best way to deal damage in terms of the Hydra, but I feel like there's a lot of universal use for this champion. On the Degrade passive, decreases each target's accuracy and crit rate and crit damage by 3% for each poison debuff on them. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only one will activate. Now, the bosses in general have like a 15% crit rate, I believe. So being able to mitigate that can stop some of the bad crits from potentially the new dungeon bosses and keep that consistent for you. As I feel like he might be a potential great champion for the new hard mode dragon, which I think is dropping at a very similar time to these champions. I'm not too sure yet. But yeah, overall, very solid kit. Great for Poison Explosion, and not needing accuracy is one of the best parts of his kit. So last but not least is going to be the Supreme Athel, who is actually my favorite starter champion in Raid. The rare Athel, before she turned into Dark Athel and now Supreme. And once again, Sacred Order, Void Legendary, attack based. And this is one that I've not deep dived into proper before recording the video. But with the Exemplar of the Stoicism, attacks one enemy. If there are any enemies under a freeze debuff, also attacks them. Decreases enemy... Oh, that's actually very interesting. Let's not skip past that there. So if you've got an AoE freeze champion, which I believe she might be bringing in her kit, that A1 hypothetically turns into an AoE, granted you've got freeze on all of your enemies. Because if there are enemies under a freeze, she will also attack them. So if this has a good damage multiplier on this A1 skill, that's actually going to turn out to be very, very strong. It's like an AoE without being an AoE. Decreases the enemy's attack by 3% whenever this champion hits an enemy with this skill and stacks up to 30%. So some potential uses for these bosses. Maybe the new Fire Knight's dungeon, where it freezes a big playing field in order to reduce the turn meter, for example. And also increases the champion's attack by 3% whenever they hit an enemy with this skill. On the Cold Company, on a 3-turn cooldown once booked, will attack all enemies, ignores Strengthen, Ally Protection, Unkillable if they are under a freeze debuff, and then has a 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Okay, so I feel like this kit here should have read in the alternate order, because the way that I'm reading it is like it does this stuff, it kind of ignores these conditions if they're under the freeze, and then it will place the freeze afterwards. I could be wrong, right? But if that's how it's working, it'd like to be in a different order, so you're kind of placing the freeze and then leading into that stuff there. But we'll have to wait on that behalf to see how that works out. But if it works in that way, pretty good to ignore some damage mitigations out there, right? And an AoE ability as well, hopefully it can hit hard, being an attack-based champion. Ever Faithful places a 50% increased attack buff, a 30% increased crit rate buff, and a shield buff on this champion for 3 turns. But then he will grant an extra turn. The value of the shield is proportional to this champion's attack. I don't know any other champion, correct me if I'm wrong, whose shield is based off their attack. I might just be being silly here, but traditionally from champions, it's this shield is proportional based on this champion's defense or this champion's HP, so you can really rack up their sustainability. But this one's based on the attack, which is pretty unique, I think. Frosty Glare has a 15% chance of placing a freeze debuff on the attacker for 1 turn when hit while under a shield buff. So even if the value of this shield isn't huge, it will be enabling this Frosty Glare passive and has a 35% chance of placing a freeze debuff on all enemies for 1 turn whenever a shield buff on this champion is removed from damage. Okay, so now this actually starts to have a bit of synergy, because if the proportionate to attack, which is what I was a bit scared about, because I was like, how is this really going to ramp up here and the value of that? So if the shield isn't huge, let's just say hypothetically, and then you kind of, that shield gets taken off by your enemies, it's a way to kind of now freeze all of your enemies. And I think that's a pretty cool synergy there, for sure, for like arena and stuff. So yeah, I feel like overall it's kind of ways to counter all of the hard mode dungeons in a sense, whilst having some universal use in other places. I feel like this champion might be used for the finite, right? And then the Supreme Galek might be used for, what was it, the new Ice Golem one, right? Where burns is a big thing. And then the Kale one might be very strong for the new dragon. And that's kind of how I've been reading it. And then I felt like I've seen in the comment section that many of you guys felt like the Fusion Champion is going to be very strong for Spider's Lair. Maybe pairing out of like a Hex Champion or something along that caliber. So I kind of get the theme. They're bringing in the hard dungeons. They're bringing up the new Supreme versions of these Void Legendary Champions to kind of be the answer to the hard mode dungeons, or at least be an addition to your squads. Being Void Legendaries are going to be very hard to attain, but with the anniversary events, I would not be surprised to see a guaranteed or some sort of champion training tournament. So maybe keep your eyes open for that in like the news tab or something, or be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay notified of any future anniversary events. Guys, that is going to be all for today's video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I've actually got a really fun video to do with Astranix the Dark Fae and also Bommel the Dreadhorn on Nub Raid's channel, where we're doing a 2-part collaboration. And that should all be dropping hopefully shortly after this video goes live, maybe a couple hours or so afterwards. Have an amazing rest of your day if you're not going to see me later on, and I'll catch you guys in a video soon. Peace.